So with no further ado, let's move on to Ancestries.
Alright, okay.
So, starting off with the first Ancestry, the Estalar. Now, I already explained that, you know, the main thing came from the artwork that I saw from Felcat, and it was this all kind of like, you know, ethereal looking kind of like hair, kind of like mixing with stars and nebulas behind them, and I absolutely love that. I was just like, it's as simple as that. There is no intricate thoughts behind this. I just saw it, I found it amazing, I found it inspiring, and I'm like, what if there were like these ancestral beings, like, you know, these primordials that came first, like, you know, the first pieces, let's say, that, you know, that were created for this Starlight Chronicles setting, for this universe. And what if they were basically beings of like pure astral etherealness, kind of like thing? I'm using a lot of fancy words just to explain them, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
get the point.
I mean, we're gonna use a lot of more. Yeah.
A lot of astral,
So,
a lot
about
of stellar stuff, yeah.
Something that I think Kel forgot to mention, but I'm gonna talk about Estalar, is that it was very important for them to not be, because they travel the stars before everyone, right? So there's
Yeah.
a bit of them on every planet.
Yes.
And they tried messing with the populace, but never in an aggressive or like negative way. Like, they were not imperialistic. That was not who the Estalar were.
The main idea for the Estalar was basically that they were helping with the work of the astral siblings. Like, that was the idea.
Perfect.
They were the
Yes.
first people, and they were helping bring everything together, make, like, you know, peace on all planets, kind of like this thing, but without any wars or anything like that. They were at a level that no other basically species has been able to reach, but at the same time they did have their own issues, and they were in their own way, spoiler alert, betrayed by the acts of the astral siblings themselves, or at least they failed. So, as I was saying, basically the Estalar are a very special ancestry for us. We obviously knew from the start that it's not going to be a playable ancestry option, and because of that, because they're so cool, we really wanted to make it a playable ancestry option, but we had to basically kind of find a middle ground. So we made the half Estalar, which is basically descendants of the Estalar that are kind of hiding across the universe, and there's only a few of them left. So it makes them super special still, but not super broken, which is very important if you want to play a balanced game.
At the same time, they're the perfect type of adventurers, because they wanna see what the Estalar are all about, so they can travel the stars to look for artifacts, right?
Because it's like being a lost child, basically, and not knowing your past, so it gives you all the more reason to want to discover where you came from and what is this whole thing, why do I look like this, you know, kind of like thing.
One fun fact about the Estalar, my favorite fun fact, is that they are the ones that originated the common language that all beings share in the Sea of Stars, and I'm very proud of that, because usually common is just a language that everyone knows in these fantasy settings. There's no explanation to why everyone talks common. We do have one that makes a lot of sense. These people travel the stars and they spread their language.
By the way, did I write that?
No, I wrote that.
Oh, you wrote that. Okay, I was gonna say, because I wrote like 90% of the Estalar like lore, and I'm like, I don't remember writing that.
I added just that contribution because I thought it would be perfect for them.
That's
you know?
No, that was perfectly fitting. I remember that being an Estalar thing, but I was like, did I write that?
No, I actually added in the part, but yeah.
So as you can see,
it is an Estalar thing.
Like at like real time now, you can see why we work together. So another very very signature ancestry, I would say, is the Eythereals. The Eythereals are, I would say, after, well, maybe, I don't know, I'm kind of like torn between the Estalar and the Eythereals, but I think the Eythereals are my favorite, because they have this so unique kind of like reason to exist. Like, they kind of like have their own thing already going, because you make an ethereal character, you already have plenty of reasons to like do things. You don't need a lot of motivations or things like that you need to come up with yourself. And if anything, it actually boosts that kind of like writing. Like, for a player, it gives you so much role-playing options, so many it's just like, I don't know, they're so full of character and so full of history as well behind them, even without knowing a lot about their history, because a lot of it's clouded basically, like, you know, from the past and like stories and whatnot. But it's still such a cool ancestry to have in such a vast galaxy filled with so many other ancestries. And specifically, I want to say where the idea for them came from. I was talking about basically with one of our other writers, Philip, and I was saying I want to have this pirate race basically in the like a specific species that is also the main species that will be pirates in the Sea of Stars. And he was like, "Oh, well, what are you thinking of? Like, will it be like, you know, very raw and like, you know, gruesome and stuff?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want to go, you know, too much into that. I don't want to make it like, you know, very adult kind of like, you know, themes and whatnot. I still want it to feel dark, like, you know, they're pirates. Obviously, they will kill people, but I don't want it to be like, you know, too graphic or anything like that." So the idea came from like the whole thing with the ether. That's where I came up with the whole thing. Basically, very Warhammer 40k inspired with a Dark Elder that basically kind of like travel the stars and kind of like the if I remember correctly, and correct me here if I'm wrong, I'm not a huge kind of like, you know, Warhammer 40k lore.
I am so I'm gonna correct you. Go ahead.
Okay, so so they basically travel the stars and they consume other people's souls, right, in order to feed themselves.
Yeah, you're right. You're correct.
Yeah,
yes.
That was one of the. I knew that briefly, by the way. I just a little bit from some games and whatnot. And I was like, that's such a cool idea, and I wanted to combine it with the idea of the ancestry option that I already had in my mind, of them like kind of like fading if they don't feed themselves with a substance that exists in the universe. Kind of like I wanted to make it like the drug of the Sea of Stars, but without the negative connotation, you know? Like, obviously, if you're a GM and you want to make it, like, you know, have a negative connotation, you're more than welcome to do so. It's your game. But I didn't want that to be visible in the book, you know? There is no single place where we mention ether as, like, kind of like an addictive substance or something like that. But it could very well and easily be, like, the main reason why you do anything. Like, it's one of the main trading materials in the Sea of Stars. Like, it holds like the highest value, I would say, right? Maybe some crystals and whatnot, like coming from specific planets, might cost more, but at the same time, ether is so hard to find and so hard to come by. Like, all the Eythereals are always looking for it because it's their main food, their main source of, like, sustenance. And when you have pirates that are basically kind of like stealing people, like, abducting people, and they're using machines to basically basically extract ether from their souls, from them, it just makes it like, it adds this kind of like eerie dark element to it without making it too dark. So that was the main design kind of like idea behind the whole Eythereal ancestry. You want to add something to that, Arthur?
Yes, just to expand on what you mentioned about the pirates and how we leave it to GM heads. There are several ways you can interact with the Eythereal pirates, and there are several different fleets of piracy, right? They are all kind of together, but they all have their own agenda as your adventure in the book, right? So I'm very curious to see how players and GMs are going to handle this, because you can handle each fleet in a different manner, right? And they even impact the ending of the story, depending if you play your cards right. You can have an entire pirate fleet to help you in the final fight, right? So there's a lot going on with the Eythereals, and we made it sure to give players options beyond just sucking souls from creatures. Yes. Like, we can destroy magical artifacts and items to eat your ether, right? But the option of just killing someone and eating their soul is there as well. So don't worry about it if you're either side of the camp.
But generally, as you can imagine from what we're saying, there's so much flavor into just this one like ancestry. It's just filled with so much goodness. Like space goodness, I would say. It has so many themes already built into it, like as an ancestry, that I wouldn't even like think twice before making an Eythereal character if I was a player in Starlight Arcana. But anyway, that's enough about Eythereals. Let's talk about Ratfolk. And you want to start us off, Arthur? Because that's very much your kind of design.
Yeah, but hey, okay, let's start with a funny thing about the Ratfolk, because we can go from there, right? I remember we were discussing about the Ratfolk, and I told Kel, why would anyone play a rat person, right? Like, they're not cool, right? And then Kel was like, oh, they're not cool, you just wait. So he commissioned an artist to make a cool-looking Ratfolk adventure, and was like, you are right, these are the coolest guys in the book.
This was indeed exactly how it happened. And literally, Arthur said, like, oh, they don't look good enough. I'm like, he might be right. Nobody would want to play like this little kind of like rat thingy, you know, like. And then we did the whole artwork thing where we're like, okay, we need to pump it up. We need to pump it to 11. We need to have like some awesome, like, you know, muscular like, Ratfolk or something like, or some very like, you know, guily kind of like, you know, looking at Ratfolk, and it came out perfect. Like I think it's the work of Trovan, by the way, and it came out fantastic.
I think it's my favorite piece of art in the entire book. And the book is beautiful, by the way. And so it's a high praise I'm giving here. So Ratfolk, let's talk about them for a moment. They come from Zituni. We're going to talk about Zituni later, right? Mm-hmm. What you need to know about them is that they are the trader race of the set. We don't like to give like species hats in Starlight Arcana, right? We usually make them a bit more complex than that.
Yeah, because the Eythereals are also very trade or merchant heavy, at least, like, you know, they are very much involved in that. It's basically the Ratfolk and the Eythereals, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They are actually very close together in the setting, now that you mention it. They're kind of part of the same coin. So they're very tradey-like, right? And because it's a desert situation, we can make some interesting environments for them to live, right? We created a society that lives both above ground and underground, right? We play a lot with rat characteristics.
You know, because we didn't have enough space with different planets. We wanted to also explore the underground planets.
Yeah, that's how ambitious we are. The surface is just the first step, right? We have to go underground as well. But there is a lot going on with Ratfolk in the campaign, and it's probably one of the saddest races to play on, which is weird, right? You think Ratfolk are about cows and fun, but something happened in their planet. I'm not sure if you're gonna get out of here, that makes playing them in the situation of the story a bit heavier than other races. And I find that contrast interesting, right? Because you're gonna play a talking animal and you're probably the one carrying the biggest trauma with you as you do that, right?
And it's usually like you would hear Ratfolk and you would think it might be like very shallow as a designer, kind of like as a background, kind of like to the ancestry and all that. But it's nice that, you know, we had so much added for that, you know, it makes them special. Like, they're not just Ratfolk, he's not just a rat, you know. There's a lot to it.
Yes.
But yeah, talking about Ratfolk, let's talk about Ravenfolk. Talk about more animal folk.
Yeah, we had 3 animal folks. This is the second one, Ravenfolk. That one was a challenge for me because Kenku already exists, right? They are a thing. So how can we make ravens and people?
I will say here, one of the main design principles that we had for making these ancestries is that they need to feel alien. They cannot just feel like they all come from Latakar, which Latakar, the main planet, basically, the first planet where you start off the adventure as well in the campaign, it's basically like the equivalent of Earth. So we wanted them to feel a bit more alien. We didn't want it to just feel like ravens, like, you know, straight up like a ravens from like, you know, if you go outside the city and find a raven or something. We wanted to feel a bit more alien, and Arthur is going to explain like a bit more about that. We really wanted them to feel distinct, which is why the Ratfolk also have like this whole thing with the trading. They're not just like all about, like, it does come a little bit from the animal and how we see animals as, you know, as ourselves in real life, but we wanted to give them a bit more beyond that because they have consciousness, they have intelligence. So
of course, yes. For the Ravenfolk, what we tried to do was add a bit of edge to them. I don't mean they are edgy. I mean they are.
I'd say they're very edgy.
They are a bit. I mean, they're ravens, right? That's a bit edgy itself. But like, we want them to be fierce hunters, like savage but noble in the pursuit of hunting, of conquering their prey. So they are like very barbarian-esque, very ranger-esque in the idea that they are attuned with the nature, but they are aiming to be the apex predator, right? Yeah. Which goes against most depictions of raven as people. In other settings, right? Usually they're the sneaky types, they make groups like mobs, mafia. None of that.
Actually, that's very true. They are usually kind of like very
I made my research.
Kind of like illegal situations, right?
They are not like criminals. It's all legal in their planet, right? And they're very proud of hunting. It's the thing they like to do more than
the Ravenfolk were something that we really wanted to really stand out, at least in its own way. And I know that sounds very generic to say, but in its own way, because they are the apex predator of their planet. So we really needed to like bring a lot of character to that ancestry. It couldn't just be ravens, you know. And to finish off the trio of animal folk, we have
Shar.
The how?
The Shar!
Oh, okay, I missed the S. I'm like,
sorry. It's Shar!
Yeah, the Shar. In other words, the Sarkfolk, which we decided to call the Shar because it sounds much cooler, basically. Yeah, and that is, I think, your favorite ancestry, right?
My favorite is Crystalloid, but it's number 2. It's number 2. Why I like them so much? Because it would be easy to make them, they're the hunting race, they're like the Ravenfolk. They are not that, people.
Yes.
They are gourmands. They have big mouths, so they have big tongues, so they can taste more. So the entire society is this search of the best tasting food, so they travel the stars to get recipes, right? And they prepare the food, and like they enjoy spreading food around, and they have the best chefs in Galaxy.
May I add here, the Sark is my favorite animal, all-time favorite animal, and I absolutely love them because they are so misunderstood. At least, you know, I believe they're super misunderstood. There's like, you know, everybody thinks that Sarks kill so many people, but like, there's so few deaths, basically, in comparison to so many other things. And I think they're fantastic animals, and just because they're so misunderstood, it's funny to note here that we never communicated this. I never told Arthur about this, like how Sarks are my favorite animal or anything like that. I gave him
he never did that.
I gave him the prompts and the ideas and the designs, and I'd like, you know, the things that I had at least in mind, and he basically developed them into this gourmet society. And I was like, this is exactly what not exactly what I had in mind, but perfectly aligned to what I wanted to like do for them. Something special that people wouldn't expect. Like, they're not what they look like, and I think it's absolutely perfect. And the idea of, like, you know, having big mouths and they just enjoy food so much is amazing, because it's such a, as you said yourself, it's such a big galaxy, it's such a big place. Like, the Sea of Stars is so expandable as well. It would be silly if we didn't have someone that actually, at least one ancestry, like, that enjoys exploring and discovering these things. We already have explorers, actually. We have a lot of that, but we didn't have anyone that savors, you know, and appreciates the other tastes and all these things that exist out there. So yeah, the Shar are perfectly on point for that. They still look very scary. We have like some of the artworks that we have, like, depict them as like humongous, like, Sarkfolk people. Like, it's just, but
I kind of enjoy the contrast of this large, tough-looking, you know, ancestry, but they are all about having a good time, you know. Yeah. They just have big bones, you know. It's not muscle; it's big bones, you know. They're just big guys. It happens.
So moving on, we have our most, I would say, normalist, kind of like nuance.
I disagree.
Because I disagree. I know what you mean. I'm totally with you, but at least in terms of like what is known, like I really love elves. I personally love elves, and I was like, there's no way we're not gonna do our own version of an elf, you know? There's like 1,000 out there. It would be remiss of us to basically not do our own thing. And we have the Crimson Elves. Disclaimer here, Blood Elves are my absolute favorite race in World of Warcraft. I have played a Blood Elf for so many years before quitting. And I absolutely love their story. I love, like, you know, the theme, everything that comes with them. And I just, in a way, I was paying tribute to it, but at the same time, it kind of went hand in hand with having an ancestry that is more connected to something darker. And that, the design choice for the Crimson Elves, actually comes not from the Blood Elves, surprisingly, but from the Elves from Symbaroum by Free League Publishing. Because the Elves in Symbaroum are like this super dark race that it's basically dark in the sense that they are all hidden and they have suffered so much and they have become so weary of the world around them, and they basically like hate everyone, like, you know, without even knowing them, because they're like, oh, they're just here to hurt us, you know, because they have already done all these things. And it's so raw and real, and I was like, I really want something like that. I want someone that is not just misunderstood, but also like straight up evil in some ways. So the Crimson Elves were basically that version of like those elves, in a way that I kind of wanted them to be tied to something that we introduce like through their planet and their environment that wouldn't have them make sense. And that was basically the Blood Moon planet, which we'll explain later, which, you know, comes with all these like pagan-like rituals, like pagan-inspired at least rituals and whatnot of like, you know, blood mounting and whatnot. So yeah, you wanna obviously like, you know.
Yeah, I had a lot to say about the Crimson
I was
Elves,
gonna say, yeah.
They were the most challenged one, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because I dislike the idea. No. That's probably the easiest part that they are elves. The hard part is the Crimson part, right? The thing is, I go out of a limb to say that I will never design a pure evil fantasy race, right? I don't enjoy that. I find it's way easier to do that. That's no fun, right? To me, that's just not fun to do. So the challenge was, okay, they're doing all these horrible things to people and rituals, right? They are sucking the marrow and blood and soul of people to create this horrible magic. How do I justify that, right? So I try creating a culture that ties to the Blood Moon planet, right? That tries to justify why would someone do this and think they are righteous for doing that, right? And I want the readers to tell me if we achieved that or if they're still very evil. Let's see. I did my best, but it's hard, you know.
I think we did. I mean, we were very happy with that, and the reason that we did that we do feel like it's something that we did achieve in the end is because it feels good. Like the story adds up. Like the story when you go with your adventuring party through that, it adds up. You have good reasons to help both sides, right? You have good reasons to be involved in what is happening. You have good reasons to understand what a blood ritual is, and I think that the Ancestry basically has a lot of backbone to it, like enough backbone to justify them having their own planet, basically, in this case. So yeah, no, I think that they have earned a place in the elf menagerie, in the elf sub ancestry menagerie.
The elf pantheon.
Yeah,
right?
Elf pantheon of like sub ancestry. Yeah. But yeah, maybe, who knows? Maybe we'll do like Crimson Sun Elves and Crimson Moon Elves. No, that's not gonna happen.
Oh my god!
Probably no. But yeah,
the Blood Sun.
Yeah. Moving on to the last ancestry. Is the Crystalloids your favorite ancestry? Apparently, I thought it was a Shar, but you betrayed them.
No, I don't betray them. Okay, why? Okay, so you need to understand why I say Crystalloids are my favorite, right?
Go for it.
First one, they have to be my favorite because this was the one that Cal told me go crazy. I don't have notes. Write whatever you want. Yeah. So if they're not my favorite, what I'm doing, right? I have to make sure.
These were the ones
if it's just me.
These were the ones that I gave the lightest design notes in terms of how Arthur could or should make them, basically. So most of the work, I actually gave him a lot of design prompts and a lot of design ideas that I already had, and he expanded on them. And this was the one that I told him, just do whatever you want, make it however you want. Like, it was very open, basically, from the very beginning.
So my main design goal with them was to make them feel as alien as possible. Like, they are the most alien species that's playable. Like they don't have gender. They can modify their personality by inserting crystals inside of their own core, and that changes how they play, right? So if you want to play something that is very alien and something that you only find in the fantastical space, the Crystalloid are for you, right? I don't want to spoil too much because there's a lot of...
Note here, basically, the whole thing about gender that you mentioned as well, this is one of the things that we try to avoid, basically bringing to the forefront of the ancestry options as well. Like, we never mention gender for Estalar or anything like that, keeping it very open for anyone to play them however they want, because keep in mind, this is a huge galaxy, and with so many options, you can do whatever you want. We didn't want to limit anyone to, like, you know, oh, I need to be male or female or something like that. Which is why we also don't mention a lot of things, like, in regards to that in any of the ancestry options. Whereas with the Crystalloids, the reason why we did mention it, like, the reason why Arthur is mentioned here is because they really are that alien. They don't, like, conform to any of the things that we actually know. Like, they don't
even... Yeah. They don't even reproduce normally. So. Yeah, they are born from their planet from crystals. They shape themselves, right? They connect each other. And and one of my favorite things about them, just to close off with a lore bit, right, is that they can technically live forever, right? They don't age. Yes. But after a certain age, they shatter themselves, basically destroying their life, and use these shatter bits to create new life. So that's kind of their children. That's how they reproduce in a way, right?
Yeah.
And all their experiences get spread through the cosmos, and more crystalloids are born this way, right? And it's completely voluntary. No one is asking them for do that, but some feel that they experience how they had to experience, and how they want to see what's on the other side, right?
Yeah.
Even their death is something different from other heritages. But that's it. That's the crystalloids. I hope you enjoyed them. I did my best to make the best.
No, I think they came out fantastic. The whole story as well with them, and like how they were affected by the whole situation in the Starlight Arcana's campaign with the corruption.
Yes.
We'll get to that when we talk about the planet. But that I think
I'm holding my tongue.
Yeah, the fact that the ancestry was made this way, like you made it, that you designed it that way, already gave a lot of footing for how it's very strong fundamentals for how the story was actually going to be built later, and that's a huge thing. So before we move on to the subclasses, I do want to make an honorable mention, because the honorable mention in this case would be the Eth, which was going to be the gnome version of the Eythereals. We actually had some concept artwork for it. They were basically short Eythereals, and in the end we cut them from the book because we were like, there is actually a character that is a short Eythereal in the book. You will see it through the story. We still use the artwork, and we made it something a bit more special. But at the same time, we were like, okay, I don't think a short Eythereal has much to add to the whole kind of menagerie and the whole kind of the whole kind of new ancestries situation. So we kind of scrapped it very early on. We even discussed it, right? We had the whole thing.
You did.
Oh yeah, what would be special about them? And we just not that we couldn't come up with anything, but we were like, they don't give anything. They don't add anything to the whole thing. So we didn't want to copy-paste, oh yeah, there's humans and there's dwarves. There's elves, there's gnomes. We didn't want just to copy-paste, the whole formula. We wanted to make our own formula. So that's why we went into designing all these different ancestries in the way that we did. But yeah.
I will mention that they do kinda appear, right? It's very vague if they are a species or just a tribe of smaller Eythereal, right?
Yeah.
They are there. You're gonna find them in the story, but the numbers are so small, right? That it's not probably material for a playable race in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, Estalar are also very few, but it's the core narrative. So yeah.
Yeah, but there's more. Like, why would leave the Eythereal, the ice planet? They're thriving there. Why would they leave? Right.
So anyway, that's the main design principles and main design ideas that we had for making Ancestries.